So once again, good morning. The title of today's talk is Be Still and Know. It is also the theme for this year's World Day of Peace that is being facilitated by, among others, Unity Worldwide. The actual World Day of Peace is this coming Thursday, which is September 11th. We'll start our prayer vigil on the day before, on Wednesday evening, on the 10th. And then there will be I'm assuming, service here on Thursday evening to celebrate the World Day of Peace. And the theme of Be Still and Know is literally one of my favorites. If I could I actually do have a top 10, my favorite scriptural readings. The Be Still and Know is one of those top 10s. And the reason is because of its practical value. You probably have heard in many different contexts and everything, and certainly in scriptural references, there will always be wars and rumors of wars in the world. And we are advised to be not concerned by those things. We are invited into holding that intention of peace despite the appearances of trouble or war or discord, dissonance in the world. And in Unity, we practice that by going within. It's our Unity's fourth principle. We'll talk more about that in just a little while. But that is that invitation to be still, to go within, to connect with that indwelling Christ presence, to know the truth, capital T truth, that there is an underlying divine order despite appearances, external appearances in the world. And so the problem is these external appearances in the world, and the solution is for us to maintain and grow our own personal peace and also contribute to world peace, is to be still, to not be swayed about or tossed about on the waves of all of these external appearances. That if we're going to practice a spiritual practice, the purpose of that spiritual practice, whatever form it takes, is to not only transform our lives, but also to help us practice that indwelling peace. That is the promise of the indwelling Christ. It is the intention of that indwelling divine, and it's always present. It awaits our attention. It awaits our awareness. It awaits our intention and engagement. It's always there no matter what we're going through, no matter what is happening in the world. That is the divine order. In today's talk, we're going to basically have three movements here. We're going to unpack the Be Still and Know verses, which comes from Psalms. We'll get to that in just a moment. We're also going to talk about in Exodus when Moses encounters God at the burning bush. We're going to talk and unpack that a little bit. And then we also are going to talk about the power of order, which is the power of the month. Out of the 12 powers, it is the power of the month for the month of September. And we're going to unpack that, and hopefully I'll make sense and kind of weave all this together and everything. For those of you all that know me, you know that I have more material planned than I can get done in 20 minutes, and I've already used up about 3 of those minutes at this point in time. So where's Ellen? She's not here with her clock, but there she is. There she is. She'll keep me on track. Because I literally, once you get rolling with this stuff, I could talk about it all day long. And I don't want to keep us here all day long. I have a lunch appointment, and so do you probably. So we'll try and move along, but you're going to take in a lot of information over the next 15, 17, 18 minutes, and then we'll take it into the silence, and we'll let the indwelling presence reveal to you individually what is most important, what can serve you in your personal transformation right here, right now, today, and moving forward. So to get started with this, what I actually want to do to lay the groundwork first is I want to read Psalm 46, which is where the phrase, be still and know that I am God, comes from. I'm just going to lay this out right now. We'll break it down a little bit later in the talk. But I invite you right now, just if you're comfortable, just go ahead and gently close your outer eyes and just listen to these verses. And then we're going to break them down in terms of what's actually going on in these verses. There's 11 verses. They're all short. But it starts off this, and we probably have all heard this before. God is our refuge and strength, a very present help in trouble. Therefore, we will not fear, though the earth be removed, and though the mountains be carried into the midst of the sea, though the waters thereof roar and be troubled, though the mountains shake with the swelling thereof. Selah. I want to pause just a moment on that word Selah. It's S-E-L-A-H. The actual meaning is kind of debated. It's not really known, but in general, what that word Selah is an invitation to pause. In musical terms, it would be like after a verse or a chorus, and we have an instrumental break, where the instrumental break takes place and allows us to take in the words and the meaning. In Psalm 46, there are 3 movements here, and that's the first movement comes at the end of verse 3 there with that first Selah. So what's being described here is, don't worry, no matter what the external appearances are, though the world seems like it's losing its mind and going to fall, it's inviting us into that. Pause. Continuing on, there is a river, the streams whereof shall make glad the city of God, the holy place of the tabernacles of the Most High. God is in the midst of her. She shall not be moved. God shall help her, and right that early. The heathen raged, the kingdoms were moved. He uttered his voice, the earth melted. The Lord of hosts is with us. The God of Jacob is our refuge. Selah. Come behold the works of the Lord, what desolations he hath made in the earth. He maketh wars to cease unto the end of the earth. He breaketh the bow and cutteth the spear in sunder. He burneth the chariot in the fire. Be still and know that I am God. I will be exalted among the heathen. I will be exalted in the earth. The Lord of hosts is with us. The God of Jacob is our refuge. Selah. We'll unpack that a little further here in the second movement of the talk. But at this point, I want to kind of go backwards in the Hebrew Scriptures to the book of Exodus for a citation there that will carry forward with us. Before I do that, would anybody, if you have an idea about the answer to this question, just go ahead and shout it out. Do you know what the 2 most powerful words in the English language are? I am. Very good. Go to the head of the class. You probably heard me say that at breakfast before, huh? I am. And so what we're going to go back and find out where that came from. That comes from Exodus chapter 3. And this is when Moses is encountering God. And basically kind of asking for the direction. We've heard of the burning bush. And the burning bush, metaphysically, think about it. The burning bush not only was an illumination, but the idea of the burning bush and the fire that does not consume, that it illuminates, it purifies. And so this was used to get Moses' his attention, to get his attention on that. It's like, oh, look at this. And he's asking for direction. He's asking for input. And God asks him to remove his sandals and basically to put his bare feet on the ground so he can ground himself in the firmament, as it were. And then God gives him direction. And then Moses inquires, well, when I go back and, communicate these directions to them. Who am I to say you are? What is your name? Basically, and Moses asks God for the name. And do we have that slide up there? There it is. I am that I am. Now, as we mentioned, the two most powerful words are I am. And you notice that God, when he makes that response, there is nothing that follows the I am. That simple statement of I am represents all of the power, all of the presence. We've all heard there are many names for God, many faces for God. But for us in our humanity, what follows the I am is what will follow our consciousness. What follows our consciousness will determine our experience. So if I say, I am peace, that's my intention, I should say, and I affirm that for myself, then my experience is going to follow that. I'm going to find an experience that resonates with that recognition within me that this is who I am. I am peace. Alternatively, if I say I am a victim, then my experience is going to align with that to prove to me that my I am statement coincides with my belief system. Now, Jesus said various things, right? I am the light of the world. I am the bread and the life. I am the resurrection. Many other kinds of identifications. And we have that opportunity ourselves to identify with those, or to identify with basically that whole range of possibilities that is represented by the simple I am. That God does embody and encompass all of those potentials, the entire spectrum of potentials. And what we affirm for ourselves is what will become our experience. So when it says, be still and know that I am, fill in the blank what comes after that. And that's the experience we will get. And we'll break this down in just a moment here. And I'm going to make the case here in a few minutes about a way of looking at the be still and know that I am God, and how that simple statement also embodies the 5 unity principles. And we'll talk about that and break that down in just a moment. So God says, I am that I am, and I am, and this is Moses to the people, that I am has sent me to you. And he's referencing God, and of course, the whole story of Moses and the Jewish people after that, that's a talk for another day, right? That's a whole unpacking unto itself. But in this second movement of this talk here, what we're going to be talking about and breaking down here is the how do we practice that stillness? The practice of the stillness, to be still and know. Those simple 4 words, no matter what we're experiencing, it's always that invitation back into the silence. Be still and know. Peace, be still. It shows up in various other kinds of ways for us as well. So in the context of this be still and know that I am God, I will be exalted among the nations, I will be exalted in the earth. That's one of those verses from that Psalm 46. So the psalmist who is writing this particular psalm, speaking this particular psalm, he's speaking to the people in the midst of their turmoil. He's speaking in the midst of that upheaval. But that upheaval is always necessary for the old paradigms to fall away so that the new paradigm can be revealed, which is going to facilitate our transformation. So how many of us struggle with some of the things that are going on in the world right now? Does it challenge your peace on a daily basis? Maybe even sometimes on an hourly basis or a minute-to-minute basis? Right? If you want to have your peace disturbed, just turn on the TV. That's all you have to do to be invited into that disturbance. But then after that disturbance has happened, after we've taken that in, what are we to do with it? If we don't take up the invitation to be still and know, then we're likely to be engaged with that external circumstance, and it's going to disturb our peace. Nobody's going to stop us from being engaged in that. Nobody can stop us. If our will is to be engaged and to be upset and to engage in all that goes along with it, God not only won't stop you, God can't stop you. As long as my will is engaged that way and that's what I want to do, I can do it. As long as I want to have my peace upset, I can do it. Nobody will stop me. However, when I get sick and tired of having my peace disturbed, the solution, the antidote, is always the same. Be still and know. Going back into that inner place, that inner Jerusalem, so to speak. Jerusalem metaphysically represents that place of peace. And so if I value my peace, as I said a moment ago, one of my I am statements is I am peace, and I take that to heart, I take that seriously. Peace is my favorite word, some of y'all know that. But it's not just because it's a pleasant sounding word, it's because it's the experience and the condition and consciousness that I most desire. So if I wish to cultivate an experience of peace, then I must do those things that facilitate the experience of peace. I can't be engaged in activities and thoughts and so forth that are not peace and expect to still be at peace. It doesn't work that way. That once I want to correct my error thought, of course the miracle students will recognize that the purpose of the course is to help us create an experience of peace. And that sin, that word sin, which is one of those highly loaded, charged words, right, is nothing more than error. It's an error thought. It's an error thinking. It's an error way of being and acting. And that when I'm tired of committing that error, I can correct and do what, as A Course in Miracles says, choose again. As I choose again, I establish the conditions for me to experience peace. So this being still and knowing, this coming Thursday I mentioned at the top there is the World Day of Peace, when we're going to be kind of, nationally and collectively, maybe even internationally, practicing this be still and know. Were you aware that this coming Thursday is also 9/11? Right? It's 24 years this coming Thursday, the anniversary of the 9/11 events. And the 9/11 events were actually the event in time that wound up being my invitation to come to Unity Church of the Hills for the first time. It was while I was watching the news that day and watching that all go down. I was already on a spiritual path, but I didn't have a spiritual home. And then 1 month later, I came here to a service. It was the second Sunday they were open here in this facility. And some of y'all have heard this story before. I came here, I didn't know anybody. Actually, I knew two people that were attending the songwriters group at the time, but neither one of them were there that morning. And I was standing right outside the office over there and watching everybody get ready for service, kind of by myself, which was weird for me anyway. Getting up and going to a church by myself without someone else, that was weird too. And I was standing there and I literally heard, "You're home." Wasn't somebody saying it out here to me, just recognizing it was something that came from within. And it didn't spook me. That would be, a little too exaggerated to say that, but it did catch my attention. Like, where would that, because it was a palpable voice, "You're home." And I didn't even know I was looking for a home. But I said yes, and I started attending Unity Church of the Hills, and it did. It transformed my life, which is one of our statements. That's part of our statement, part of our mission statement, part of our purpose, part of our intention here at Unity Church in the Hills is to help one another transform our lives. Transform it into what? Well, transform it into something that's useful, that's meaningful, but more importantly for me, to teach me the principles, to teach me the practices that can facilitate the experience of peace. If your spiritual path is not facilitating the experience of peace, then you either need to take a look at how you're practicing that spiritual path, or look at the spiritual path and see if it really does intend to transform your life into an experience of peace. And if that is a activity that's going on with you right now, then this week is a good week to practice, because it's the World Day of Peace. This is when millions of minds from all over the place are connected in consciousness to practice this experience of peace, to facilitate and transform our lives in that regard. And what I want to do, can I have the next slide here? Okay, so this week, whenever I was preparing my notes and everything, I was reminded of this. I had experienced this in a weekend retreat some years ago, even before I even came to Unity. And as I was, going through and doing my notes and reading and everything, I was reminded about that. I was like, oh yeah, I remember that meditation they took us through. And so I kind of pulled it up so I could review it again and see where the breaks were. And as I was looking at it, it occurred to me, oh, this is the 5 unity principles wrapped up in these statements right here. It's like, I don't know if that's an original thought on my part. It was certainly the first time that I had that awareness. But then as I dug into it, I was like, oh, wow. And I'm sure whoever did this the first time probably wasn't thinking about unity principles at that point in time. It probably came from some other, spiritual discipline and everything. But let's take a look at that. Be still and know that I am the one power and one presence that activates all life in the universe. God. Be still and know that I am God. Be still and know that I am the one power, one presence that activates all life in the universe. As we already set up a while ago, that I am statement, I am that I am, doesn't define past the I am. It just says I am. I am the power. I am the presence. I am all possibility, all creative potential, all creative potential. Now, we affirm in unity that not only is God that one power and presence, but we also say that one power and presence is good. That there is no opposing, evil power, so to speak. That what we would call sin or error thinking or even evil is human beings that are not practicing the spiritual principles as intended. And we do have that free will. We can use, misuse, ignore, all of that. But it does not change the truth. The underlying divine order is good. The underlying divine order is God. And it is a creative potential. It is a creative power. So as we take this down and we remove that word God, be still and know that I am. Now, Unity's second principle reminds us that we, I, you, that we are children of God. We are children of that one power and one presence. Right? We've been brought into this relationship, and all of that creative power, all of that creative potential, all of that presence informs who we are. It's at the baseline. It's at our foundation. We are children of God. Therefore, we too are divine. Each one of us, every one of us, including the people we don't agree with. And this is really, really important. I don't say that lightly or as a joke. It's like, if we're going to facilitate peace, not only for ourselves, but also for our community and also for the world, you can't create peace by trying to exile others from your bubble of peace. We must enfold those that we disagree with, those that we have challenges with, into that intention of peace. If there is only one power and one presence, and we bring ourselves into alignment with that, then we have to trust that all things work together for good. And that my part, the part that I can do, is to allow that power and presence, that power of love, that creative power that facilitates peace and transformation and growth, to allow that to demonstrate and express through me. That's all I can do. I can't change anybody's mind. I can't make them be at peace. I can't fight for peace. It's an oxymoron. You cannot fight for peace. You can only be peace no matter what the external world is doing. And trust that that contribution, that expression that I'm allowing to express through me that contributes to the peace is enough. It is enough for me to intend peace, to allow peace to express through me. I'm not in charge of the 8 billion people on the planet. I'm only in charge of myself. But if I express that way, it's an invitation. It's attractive. When people who are not at peace see someone being still and knowing that they are at peace, it's an invitation to them to ask, hey, what is it you're doing? Because I'm losing my mind and melting down over here. And you seem to be at peace. What are you doing? Now you have an invitation to share with them. But even if there's an open heart willing to hear what you got to share, you still can't make them do it. You still can't make them see. What you can do is intend peace for yourself, intend peace for them, even if we have disagreements. And that is ultimately more powerful. I'm a firm believer that the power of love is greater, exponentially greater, infinitely greater than the force of fear. The power of love is greater than the force of fear. And so which way do I want to align? Do I want to be beating people over the head with a cudgel, trying to force them into things? Or do I wish to love? Do I wish love to express through me, trusting that it will play out? So the next one is be still and know. This is Unity's third principle. This one may be a stretch for some of them. It was a little stretch for me to kind of, whittle it into my five principles here. But be still and know. In that third principle, it says we are co-creating this experience by the thoughts and the feelings that we allow to dominate in our own consciousness. So if I'm not seeing peace, if I'm not feeling peace, it's because the thoughts and the feelings that are going on in my consciousness are not peace. And so I'm finding evidence in the world to support that. But if I disengage from that, become neutral, be still, and know, then that peace has an opportunity to restore. Of course, in miracles, fans will know this as choose again, right? Now the next step, we subtract a little bit more, we get down to be still. That's clearly the fourth principle, right? We go into the silence, which we're going to do here in just a minute. Be still and go into that silence, connect with that indwelling presence, that indwelling power. And I'll bring our troubles to it, bring our petitions to it, bring our challenges to it. Be still and know in that silence that there is the power and the presence always there, that divine order. That divine order. The divine order doesn't mean that I get to establish the order according to my whim. Right? The power of order invites me to connect with the divine order. I bring myself into alignment with the divine order. And I learn to do that. I become willing to do that in the silence by practicing that stillness, practicing that silence. Subtract a little bit more, and we're left with just the simple word be. That is an active verb. And for those of you all that have heard me talk before, maybe other people talking about the 5 principles, that 5th principle is the action principle. The other 4 are just principles, statements of truth. But the 5th principle is the action. It's where we take action. That doesn't do any good for me to know these first 4 principles. It doesn't do any good for me to know that there's only one power and one presence, and that I'm created in the image and likeness of it, and that I'm a co-creator of this experience, and that I can practice the silence. It doesn't do me any good to know those things. It's not going to transform my life one whit unless I'm willing to practice, unless I'm willing to take action, unless I'm willing to be. And that's it. That is the order. That is the divine order. The power of order is the power of the month this month. But as I said a moment ago, because I have this power of order and I can organize things, it doesn't mean I can organize my own truth for everybody else. It only means that I can organize and prioritize my own thinking in alignment with. And that is the secret. There's no striving. There's only that practice. So if you go forward, whether I said anything today that made sense to you, moved you, doesn't really matter at this point in time, because we're going to go into the silence and your own indwelling teacher will communicate to you what is necessary for you to know. I'm just a channel at this point in time to share with you what I'm learning, what I have learned. And I've learned a lot of that from practicing the be still and know.